Welcome back to the world's dirtiest workshop. This is Christopher Thunder here, and today we're going to be doing an unboxing of the Ryobi 10-inch drill press. Okay, so here's our instructions. I've laid out some of the parts here. This feels like that's the base, I think, and this, I think, is the platform that you're drilling through. This is the main shaft for the drill press. Here's the chuck. There's the chuck key. There's some miscellaneous parts here all wrapped up so tight you could barely get them out of there. I don't like it when people wrap things up like this, because when you start cutting things out, you start slicing into things, and that gets to be a bit of a problem. But the box itself came in pretty good condition. The main unit appears to be undamaged, and we're going to try and get this out of the box with my torn shoulder and up onto the world's dirtiest work table, and we're going to try to improve the world's dirtiest workshop today. Now, one of the things about packaging these days is the excessive use of plastics. Nothing needs this much plastic when it is packaged. Do you need plastic to protect a giant steel base? No, not really. You would probably spray that with oil, and that'll be pretty well protected in the box. Same thing with this heavy metal part. Do you need it to be wrapped in plastic when it goes into the packaging? No, it just kind of slows you down when you're trying to get it out of the box. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of throwing the plastic under my work table here, just so I can get moving, on the important parts. The metal parts are coated in oil. This shaft is very heavily oiled, so you're going to get your hands all oily when you're messing with this. So let's put that down. That's going to roll around. So I'm just going to put it there. And again, throwing the plastic under the work table. So, that is the chuck. This is the chuck key. Already my hands are getting really oily. So don't wear your best shirt when you're unboxing a piece of machinery. Bad idea. Don't wear your best shirt. You'll be very disappointed in the end. Now, these are the knobs and handles and things. So yeah, those are the knobs. This is a handle of some kind. And some more greasy parts. They sealed again in another layer of plastic. Make sure that there's nothing in that before I throw that out of the table. By the time you get to the manual, your hands are so oily that you don't want to touch the manual. It's how things are these days, I guess. Okay, so I'm about to contaminate the user instruction manual with my oily hands. Let's see, might want to have a rag handy. Now, I've got some smaller parts here in my hand. I'm not going to pull them out until I've read the instructions, because Lord knows they'll wind up underneath my work table somewhere and they'll be gone. So I want to know what I'm dealing with first. So we'll get out the instructions. Register your product today for a free toaster. Not really. Write a review. Yeah, that's something I want to do. Sure. Yeah, I'll get around to that sometime in the year 2050. Okay, assembly in a whole series of different instructions in different languages. Unpacking. Carefully remove the tool and any accessories. Warning, do not use this product if any parts are loose. On the parts list, blah, 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 blah. Inspect the tool carefully. Do not discard the packaging material until you have carefully inspected the tool. Any parts are damaged or missing, do not operate this tool until the parts are replaced. Do not attempt to modify this tool or create accessories. Yeah, boy, I'd like to put a 400 horsepower motor on this thing. Giant tailpipes. Yes, that's what I want. Tools needed: mallet or hammer, adjustable wrench, Phillips screwdriver. I gotta come back with that. Alright, so according to the manual, I need a mallet or hammer of some kind. I'm not going to go with a steel hammer because I might have to beat something into position, so I'm going with this big old nylon mallet. Phillips head screwdriver. I have no idea what size I need. My high torque adjustable wrench. My low torque adjustable wrench. And my scissors for cutting the remaining packaging open, which is right over there. Alright, back again. I had an epiphany. I came to the realization that I keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again. Those mistakes are not enough room to work. I have too much clutter before I begin doing a new task. I haven't organized, and I haven't decided exactly what I need and I don't need. I do have some work gloves over there on the side there. I've got some pens over there, you know, within reach in case I need to mark something. You know, there's some other containers there, can of peanuts and, you know, coffee creamer. They have some spare parts in it. But that's about it. Other than that, I have completely cleaned off the world's dirtiest work table. And I am ready to build this unit. I think that that's wonderful. I am finally learning not to do stupid stuff before I begin. Yeah, you do enough of this, you start teaching it to other people, and you learn how not to make mistakes. The next thing is okay, now you have everything organized, you think you have everything you need, put it aside and clear the area where you're going to build. Now my intention is to take the unit, and I'm just going to start with the lowest part. I'm going to build it right there. Okay, so that's where I'm going to build the drill press. I'm going to put it right on that right front corner where I can get at it. It's also near a power supply, which is really pretty cool. I got power on both sides of this table. Now I'm going to dig back into the instructions and see what's next. Because I've established that I am prepared to begin. Wow, I do that so much. I am so unprepared when I begin on things. Alright, I'm going to go over the important parts strictly for your benefit. Make sure you have a 3-prong plug nearby. Make sure it's grounded. You are using 125 volts. Go over the parts list. Make sure you have everything. So I'm going to go over that real quick. And then start thinking about the first thing you're going to assemble. So you want to make sure you have all the parts for that thing you're going to assemble. Just kind of work your way through the parts list and the assembly instructions. So you're not the strategy for assembling this thing. Right, and then how to get the drilling plate assembled. Okay, you know, these drill presses, they work the same way they did when my grandpa was into machining. There's a belt at the top of the unit. And depending on where that belt is on the pulley system, you'll get a different rate of drilling, different speed. So that's important to understand, you know, how this thing really works. There's no control knob for speed. There just isn't. It's a belt. That's what it is. And you have to open the top of the unit to get at that belt to control that speed. Just like Grandpa used to do. And there's nothing more. But I have these pens off to the side, and there's a place where I can write down notes in case I did something wrong, or if I'm going to move this thing sometime in the next 5 years. I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to be here for 10 years, and that's going to be it. So, I know where I'm at now. I just have to assess my parts. I have to cut open that oily package with all the little parts in it, and make sure that they're all there, and if not, I'm going to have to come up with some replacements. Otherwise, this is going to fall apart real fast. But I know what's next. Hey, I'm doing the job right this time. That's fabulous. Alright, the instructions said nothing about having a socket handle and a socket set, or even a 1/2-inch socket. But I have a 1/2-inch socket here. And we're going to do this the right way, not the wrong way. Right? Because we're not following the instructions today. We're doing it Christopher Thunder's way. Alright, I think we're ready to go. Oh, righty, tighty, lefty, loosey. Okay, good. Now, this thing is super greasy, super oily. Don't pick it up with bare hands. You will drop this thing on your feet real fast. All right. So we're over here now. I'm going to try and fix this. All right, we're over here now. Now, without jostling it around too much, I need to figure out which way is front, right? And it looks like that's supposed to go to the right. Something. Does it say? You know, it kind of looks like, can that be turned in that thing? I mean, the way that they're assembling it, it looks like that is to the right. Mounting, blah, 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 hex ball, blah, 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 yada, 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 yada. They don't tell you specifically in figure 5 where that should be. So I'm going to have to go back in the instructions and see if they direct you to figure 5. There is an assemblage area of the handbook. Assembly edge. See? Right here. Assembly edge. Or assemblage. Assemblage. Utilization. Assemblage. No. I need English, man. Glossary. No. Remember I told you about all the languages this is in? I mean, you know, I can speak a few languages, but you know what? This is kind of out of hand. Troubleshooting, maintenance, adjustments, operation, assembly. Okay, depth gauge, chuck key, loose parts list. This is loosen the set screw in the bottom of the collar, remove clean the spindle, the degreaser. Okay, so they want you to degrease some things. Locate the worm gear, install. Oh yeah, before you attempt something like this, and this is a DIY job, take a little time to Google what certain things are, such what is a spindle, what is a worm gear. If you don't understand what a word is, circle it, and then go back and Google it. And once you understand what that is, then go back and attempt a trick like this. You know, you have to understand all the words before you begin. Otherwise, you're just going to have all kinds of problems. Assembly, place the head assembly upside down, level flat, position chuck on spindle. Installing the chuck head, mounting the drill press, mount hard, blah, 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 checking and adjusting alignment, Okay, so we run into our first kink here, which is exactly how does the base go together. They're not really telling you. So, scratch one. The first thing that you need to do in this instruction set is kind of meaningless. But the picture does show it to the right. Okay, guys. Learn how to write instructions, and then learn how to follow them on your own. This just isn't fair to most people. It really isn't. Okay, so over here, I'm just going to give it a whirl here, and if I have to fix it later, I will fix it later. Now, funny thing about this is they really didn't provide you with washers or anything. They just want you to bolt that thing right down. So we're back here with the base, and we're going to try to do the first thing first. We're going to need our socket, which the instructions doesn't say we need. I got some split washers here, so I get better engagement of the mounting parts. Grandpa was an amazing engineer. He's a great guy. He had pretty amazing tools. He was a machinist. Just a wonderful old man, big family, great Christmas parties. he knew how to do stuff. And by watching him do a few things here and there when I was a small kid, I learned a little bit about doing stuff. I really did. It was really pretty promising. I never thought I'd actually get into it when I was older, but here I am. I'm into it. Now, we've got plenty of threads into that base. I mean, you know, so my little modification was probably the right idea. So let's see what we can do with this socket. The socket's not going to give me a full bite. This thing was not designed for a socket, but those split washers help me to, you know, raise the bolt up, bolt head high enough that I can put a socket on it and lock it down. So this is a 1/2 inch, right? And they wanted me to use a 1/2 inch adjustable wrench on this thing. Okay. Am I going to do that? Heck no. That is the dumbest thing in the world, to put a 1/2 inch adjustable wrench on that and torque that thing down. I'm going to get a box wrench. I'll be right back. Okay, so we're back with a 1/2 inch box wrench, the thing that they didn't tell us that we needed, right? You know, why do you want to put a box wrench on something and not an adjustable wrench? Because with a box wrench, you'll get it every time. When you lay that box wrench onto a bolt, it's going to be the right dimensions every time. You are less likely to strip that bolt every time. Now, there's a little trick here. Now that you've got it tight, oh man, my shoulder's torn. I gotta see my ortho. All right. Reorient things as you need to. I just put it on the table here. And put some torque on that baby. All right. Now, I can't lift it that way, but I'm going to go down here and do this other one. See if I can get some torque on that one. Nope. Nope. Not a chance. Now, this thing's pretty solid, so I'm just going to reorient it again. And rather clumsily get my 1/2 inch wrench on there. Maybe I'll put it off the edge of the table there. Find a spot to apply torque. Yeah. Here's another spot where I can apply torque. So orientation, really important when you're applying torque. Sometimes I'll flip my motorbike over just so I can get at stuff. All right. It's kind of important to think about these things. All right. Not half bad. But I'm doing one hell of a job getting that together. That is tight as hell. The split washers are pressed down against the steel. That is in place and that will never come apart no matter how much it vibrates. That is how you build things. The very next thing they try to tell you is they tell you to install the worm gear and the handle associated with it. And that's in this base plate, which is the drilling plate. Now, this is the base, this is the drilling plate. So I'm going to try and slip in that worm gear, even though I've got a complete lack of instructions on exactly how to do that. Okay, that's not going to work. I'm going to reorient it. Just kind of drop it in there. Hope for the best, right? Now I have dropped it in there. Ah, okay. If I spin it in, now if I spin that worm gear, the other gear is turning. That's how worm gears work. So I don't know if you can see that. So I just dropped that in there, and now that's turning. So that's the next step. All right, great. Now, what about this next part? Well, okay, there's this handle thing. That's the lock handle. And that's the threaded side. This side is probably the unthreaded side, so that just slips in there like so. And that just spins in like that, right? Okay, so I'm just going to leave that loose. I'm not going to pull that in together. And I'm going to set these things aside here. So that is the next part of the assembly process. That's not half bad. Let me go back and review my video and then I'll move on. Okay, here's where the instructions get kind of serious. They talk about loosening the set screw on the column collar, remove the column collar, and the gear rack, which is that long gear-looking thing along the column, right? Sorry, mosquito. You install the table adjustment handle over the end of the D shaft so that the flat side of the shaft aligns with the set screw. Tighten the set screw using the hex key. Okay, I'm not just going to spend all day, boring you with that stuff, because that's just terrible. Nobody wants to see that. Let's get busy with this. Alrighty, we're way up here with this set screw. I'm just trying to find the hex key that fits it. And I'm going to undo that screw. Now, when you're working with these little tiny keeps. This is a hex keep of sorts. Don't undo them all the way, because you'll tend to drop them, and then you'll lose them. So I've taken the ring off. Now, what I can do, if you think about this, I can take the table, and I can insert that into there, align that with the top of everything, and then slide it all back together. Wow. That actually was pretty easy, to be honest. I don't know. Drop it all back down together like that. Okay. That's why they didn't tell you about the orientation of this set of teeth, because it really didn't matter so much later on in the instructions. Now, all that being said, okay, there's this worm gear thing over here, and then there's this handle thing here, which we haven't really installed yet. I'm going to take it and I'm just going to give it a test here. I'm going to slip it on, and then I'm going to take this hex key here and I'm going to just tighten it up enough to get the handle attached. Alright, so let's check out the operation of the thing. Okay, there's a certain amount of success there. I'm going to come back and tighten this up later. What we can do is, now that we know that it's working, let's take the collar and let's reassemble that. Okay, so we're going to lock that back down reasonably well. Maybe, for the sake of not stripping things by accident, I'll just snug this down a little bit. Okay, now to lock everything in, all I got to do is test this part here, and now that's a lot harder to move. I think that's the whole goal. That keeps you from accidentally spinning that handle, and the table won't move accidentally on you. It's time for a brief project assessment. All of these small parts are now used up. The only thing we have left are these 3 handles here. All right, and the tools. So, hey, this is pretty easy. I was quite surprised. I'm going to turn this here. What I'm doing here is I'm just making room on my table. I'm going to go for the heavy part here. Let's see how light this is. Can an old man with oily hands actually lift this out of the packaging? And the answer is yes, he can. It's not that heavy. In the process of making instructional videos, I learned something about photography. You can put the camera in front of you, and that's all fine and good. But the best thing you can do is set the camera up at an angle so that everybody can see what you're doing. Do one thing at a time. Move cautiously. That way you don't drop things on your fingers, Alright, how's that even look? I haven't even looked in. Well, it's almost centered in the image there. Alright, so we're just going to slide that over. And have we pinched off any wiring or anything? What's going on here with the wiring? Alright. Is this a wire tie? What is it? It's a wire tie. Okay. Alright, so that's the power cord. Just get that undone. I'm going to throw the plastic back in the box. we're really almost there. Now, it might be a good time to just kind of assess, how things are with the unit. Is everything attached? Was somebody tampering with the unit? What's going on? What's open? What's closed? Okay, so there's the lid. The lid is plastic. I wish that was made of steel. I heard that this can be broken off real easy. That is the cover for the motor and the electrical parts. So I'm just going to think about what I'm doing when I'm laying it over. Let me just lay it over this way real carefully first. And then I'm going to look at it underneath, make an assessment. Alright, so hopefully everybody can see that. That's where the shaft goes. Now, I had that extra hex key, the larger one. That must go here. It does. You want to feel in there and make sure that that's not obstructing the hole. So when you go to lift this up and stick it on top of that big, long, tall shaft, that you don't wind up hurting yourself or something, right? Now, I have to think about this. If I lift this up over my head, I'm really going to be straining to do that, and that could be a problem. When I am working from below, I'm not going to lift everything up over my head so much. It'll probably be at chest height. And that's going to be easier on my torn shoulder, which I keep talking about. Yeah, I have some torn muscles in my shoulder. I was on my motorbike and, I crashed. And before that, I fell on my shoulder in the backyard. Before that, I crashed again. Boy, I am just terrible with that. So, to keep myself from injuring myself even further, I'm going to remove this assembly from the table. Speak clearly. I'm going to remove this assembly from the table, and I'm going to maybe put that on the ground, back in the box. I'm going to put this on the ground, and I'm going to assemble it from the floor, not from higher up above my shoulders. Because if I drop this, it'll bounce off the table because the table's rubber. It'll wind up on my foot, and I'm not going to be a happy camper. So we're going to do this on the floor. Okay, I'm going to try to back off appropriately so you can see what's going on here. Now, the motor goes in the back, and the knob for the cover is right above the shaft. So I'm going to fly blind here. I'm going to lift the whole assembly up. And I'm going to put the gray knob for the cover right over the top of the shaft. Let's see if we can do that. Before you lift anything heavy, wipe your hands off, get all the oil off, get all the grease off. Otherwise this thing will wind up on your foot real fast. Don't pick it up by the plastic electrical cover, you will shatter it. Set it on to the shaft. Okay, yep, there we go. That is awesome. Wow, that was easy. I'm just checking it for alignment right now. And I'm going to find... Mosquito, man, just went right into my mouth. There we go. So I'm locking this in place. You can't see it. Take my word for it. I am locking that on with the hex key. So there's a little keep there that allows me to tighten up this part. Okay, this is part of the chassis. And it's going to tighten it down against that. Now, I could lift the whole thing up vertically, but that's kind of stupid. They didn't really give this a lot of thought. If I pick this part up with my hands, this part could drop out and wind up on my feet. So don't do that. When you assemble stuff, think about how it's actually put together before you pick it up, because you could wind up crushing a toe. That's not such a great idea. What you're about to see is an old man picking up a rather heavy piece of equipment. with a torn shoulder. First thing I'm going to do is kind of secure the electrical part of this. Now I thought about this. If I tip it over and get it level and then pick it up, I'll do a much better job with it. I'm less likely to drop the base onto my feet. So I'm going to lean it way over. I'm going to hold it by the top of the chassis if I can. There we go. And pick it up and then lay it onto the table. So I'm going to do an action replay here. Action, not quite instant replay. So, just to give you a feel for how heavy this thing is, I'm going to lower it onto my elbow. And part of the problem is this handle. The moment you put it down, you're on that handle. And I think that that's probably why they want you to put that in last. So here's my suggestion. If you're going to be moving this thing around, take the handle off. Okay. Now we can lay it over. And this is where I really think that this top part should be made of steel and not of plastic. I don't think that plastic's going to protect anybody enough. Alright, so I laid it over and I realized that the handle was on. That was a problem. And then I stood it up. And that was a lot easier to work with when, you know, you're injured. But again, you have to remember, don't put that handle on first, because that screws up your ability to lift it into place. So I'm going to put that handle back on. And then I'm going to take my hex key, and I'm just going to lock that onto that little keep there. And now that it's, you know, pretty much the way it should look when it's complete, I'm going to lock that down even better. Wow, that could have fallen off and nailed me in the foot. Okay, I'm going to pull back and show you what it looks like. Ta-da! My drill press is where it needs to be. Now, it's in position on the table. Power is on this side, but the actual plug goes in over here on this other side. So I want to wrap it around the back. Is there anything else here we need to worry about? The chuck's not in place. I'm not going to care about that. Well, we have a light. Okay, that's great. There's the chuck and the chuck key. Alright, how does that actually go on? I have to worry about that later. I'm going to show you this real quick. So you can see, even with the light, you can see, let's try and hold her steady. You can see with the light, there's a laser beam there. That's really handy. There's a work light above it. Not the best, but it's enough. So that laser is going to come in handy when it comes to centering things. The only thing I have to worry about is installing the chuck. And I think we're going to be done here. Let me do this again here. I just wanted to show you this. There's a laser beam, a cross laser beam there, which marks everything on center. The only thing left to do is install the chuck, and I'll finish that up. And that'll be the end of the video. So let's get that chuck installed. The last part of the assembly is the chuck. Now, I have to get that chuck up there somehow. And the way they tell you to do it is use a mallet. And they say they want you to get a piece of wood, and they want you to take that piece of wood and put it against that and somehow tap that into place, right? They even expect you to lay this thing over, if I read the instructions correctly, and I just don't think that that's feasible. let's just take a look at some things here real quick. This is held on by a little tiny pin over here, and it's reasonably well attached, but the machining is terrible. The fitment from here to here is awful. This thing is just one loose, willy-nilly kind of an assembly. I'm going to show you what I mean. If you were to just kind of turn that, you see how loose that all is? And how that's just all kind of moving around? That is just awful. And a lot of that is this pin up here at the top, right? That collar kind of keeps it from moving. And with all of that, you know, being the way it is, there's nothing keeping the bottom from staying aligned with the top. That whole gear system just kind of moves around at an angle on the shaft, so that's just awful. Okay, yeah, it's not very expensive. But the machining and engineering of this thing is absolutely crap. Plastic top, okay, come on guys, steel, man, safety, 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 safety. Okay, I'm wearing safety glasses, but man, if that belt comes flying out of there and starts spinning around, you know, that'll take your head off. So, no, that's not how you make things. Okay, I'm going to put the chuck on and finish the video. Scale of 0 to 10. I'm going to give the construction of this thing about a 5. It really doesn't have anything great about it. It's just a machine, you know, and it will do the job, but it's just loose. Everything about it is loose. I'm not expecting this thing to do accurate drills, but if it can drill a straight hole into a piece of metal, I'll be pretty happy with it. So there you go. That's my assessment. So let me finish getting this this chuck on. Now, a funny thing about this chuck is I just slid it up there and gave it a couple of whacks, and it wouldn't come back down. So I can't get it back off. So guess what? It's staying. So let's finish the job. I don't want to wrap it so hard that I damage the machining, but I want to know that it's on there. I'm not going to wrap it much harder than that. Every time I wrap it, it seems to move a little bit further. That is on there. If it falls off, it falls off. But you know what? I'm going to say that that is pretty far up there. Can't really say for sure, but that's on there pretty firmly. So I'm done. All I got to do is come up with a chain or a string or something and attach this somewhere so I don't lose it. And then this thing is pretty much ready for operation. Putting the knobs on my drill press, otherwise I won't be able to use it. At least I wasn't a total moron and tried to drill something and realized that I couldn't do anything with it because I couldn't actually lower the drill press because the knobs weren't in the right place. Okay. This was what the adjustable wrench was for. So I want to thank you for watching me, Christopher Thunder, in the world's dirtiest workshop. I really appreciate you watching my unboxing of the Ryobi 10-inch drill press. It's been a lot of fun. I purchased it at Home Depot. There are some good warranties at Home Depot. I'm going to go with the factory warranty on this thing. If it breaks, I'll figure out how to fix it. If it fails altogether, okay, I'll have the factory replace it. But you know what? I'm going to go with it the way that it is. Just a quick reminder, make sure your drill bit is tight into the chuck. Make sure everything's plugged in. Make sure you're wearing glasses like I am wearing glasses right now today. Just checking this pull out lock. Is that separate? Yeah, okay. There we go. That's a separate thing. Okay. Laser, light, light, laser. On. Alright. Okay, shoulder, up it goes. Okay, I've got my glasses on, I'm ready. Bracing the top of the unit because that's the most leverage. Pull straight down onto the workpiece. Make sure it's clamped. Make sure your table is locked into position from behind before you drill. Mine is locked. That seems easy enough. It does make a terrible noise when you shut it off. Yeah, that's a professional unit right there. Okay. Low, high. Off. Alright. Shut off main power. There we go. There's a very tiny warning sticker here about laser light. There's a cross pattern laser light on the deck here. That little tiny sticker should be as big as the entire green panel up there, because most people are not aware of the dangers of coherent light. Coherent light damages the retina of your eye almost immediately, and the rods and cones in your eye. So, yeah, don't stare into a laser if you can avoid it. Lasers have been around for, 40, 50 years. My father, when he was into the lead-acid battery business, had one of the first commercial CO2 lasers. And one of the big things about it is you don't stare at it directly into it because you'll hurt yourself. Yeah, that thing melted lead all day long. That's what that thing did. Don't stare into a laser ever. And if you see a little tiny warning sticker like that, make your own. As far as the labeling is concerned, the labeling's not highlighted. So this is your light. And when you turn on your laser, and this is rather poor engineering, is the light dims because the laser is consuming some of the power from the circuit and drawing from the light. So that's why the light is dimmer. You know, it's not because somebody wanted it to be that way, it's because it's a poor design. That laser light should not be drawing from the power of your illumination system. I think that that's rather janky. Okay, other little things. The power cord itself, as it comes down this side of the unit, has no real way to mount the wiring system back behind it so that you can run the wire to the other side where my power is over on that side. So that's another weakness in this thing. Basic setup, basic safety, really important. But the one thing that got me was the laser. Okay, and there's a reason why. And, you know, anybody can make a mistake mechanically while setting up this thing. But there's a lot of people out there that don't work with enough lasers to understand what a laser can do to your eyeballs. So if you're going to put on a warning sticker, make it a gigantic one and explain why. Because people are just stupid. And then they'll ignore the sticker and then they'll blind themselves anyway. But that's really important. The single biggest safety issue on this unit is this little hex bolt right here. That attaches the top part to the bottom part. And if that fails or it's not tight enough and you go to move this thing by picking it up by its head, which is what most people will do, this part will slide out and land on your foot and you'll break a toe. It is extremely dangerous. That should be 3 different bolts in 3 different places. That'll make that a lot safer. I did like this little piece here for keeping your chuck key, but you know what? I'm going to put that on a big long pink string because people lose chuck keys. I don't like this spring part of the chuck key. I think that that's just idiotic. Chuck keys have been around for 50, 60, 70 years. Really, you know, just plain stupid. Now, here's your laser warning sticker on this side of the unit. It's very wordy. It doesn't need to be in all kinds of languages. Do it like an airport does it. Use visual cues. You know, a silhouette of a man screaming, holding his eyeballs might work. You know, this icon for a laser is really kind of important. So I would go with the laser and then a silhouette of a man crying out, holding his eyeballs. I think that that would probably be pretty appropriate. I do like the illumination. I think that that's plenty bright. But I have a very bright workshop, so I don't need that light under there. Most people would strap a flashlight to their unit, and in this case, we're not going to need to do that. The super janky operation of the table is absolutely horrible. That could be way better.